Hello mate, welcome back to the channel. It has been a long time. For those of you who don't know, I started making content on this channel pre-launch, pre-early access for PoE 2, and all of the content on this channel is basically around design. So we designed ascendancy classes, and just imagining how the game could maybe improve, maybe look a little bit different. And there's just some ideas to chew on, you know, if the devs ever see this, and that's great, but mainly it's just to have conversation within the community with you guys. Today I want to talk about endgame. So we know that in 0.4 we're going to get revealed tonight, probably within like an hour of this video going up, and we're going to find out what they've been cooking up for endgame. They've said it's very endgame focused. Before that happens, I've been stewing on this idea for a very long time of what I think the endgame in PoE 2 could look like, how I think the Atlas needs to be reworked, and the main focus, the TLDR of this video is that I think the Infinite Atlas is a flawed premise. I think that as soon as something becomes infinite, it kind of loses all sense of like scope and progression and this feeling of like having a purpose and a direction. So I have come up with an idea for an alternative to the Infinite Atlas, and that is what I want to go through in this video. So let's get into it. Alright, so as you can see here, we have a map of Rayclast, and this map in particular is made by Nerdy Maps. Go support them, go buy this map if you want it as a backdrop or anything. But I think this does a really good job of showing you the full scale of the world map that we have in PoE. And as you can see down here, we have Oriath. And so what I want to do is I'm going to lay out a little bit of like lore for the idea, but also want to get into the mechanics pretty quickly. But I think both of them are important. I'm not going to go too detailed on each, but the concept is through PoE 2, you make your way through to Oriath. We have a pretty good understanding that Oriath is going to be the 5th act of PoE 2, and then something happens in the 6th act, which is like this mini act where Oriath gets destroyed. Oh no, Oriath is destroyed. And then after that, we return back and the world is anew and we are in new Oriath. There's something kind of poetic here, that you started PoE 1 by getting exiled from Oriath, and now at the end of PoE 2, you sort of take this as your new home. So the idea is that the rest of the world is kind of like cast asunder. Everything as we know it is different, and you set up your little camp here in Oriath. You've got your little camp there, and we have to basically venture out into the world and start to cleanse corruption, explore it, discover for ourselves, and try and essentially re-establish society. So the idea is that we would move over to the continent of Rayclast, and we would start to explore and conquer the zones. There's nodes there and stuff like that. And what I would do is I would break the continent down into 12 regions. Let's say that, just to clean up the map, the Cataclysm destroyed the Karui Archipelago and Trathus. And so you've got these 12 regions, and the goal is, as a player, you go region by region and conquer the regions. We'll get into the details and the mechanics of that in a second. I think to kind of like broaden out the content as well, it would be really interesting to add a couple more continents. So let's say you take your boat over to this new continent over here, that again has 12 regions. And then there's a 3rd continent. You take your ship down to this continent down here, and then you have regions on there as well. So essentially when you get into the end game after Act 6, you have 3 options. You can go to the first region that is available to you on each of these continents, and you can, at your own choice, like in Act 2, you can choose which continent you go to and start exploring, conquering, and discovering what the game has to offer. Now, what is a continent, and kind of like how do you go about the regions, and what's the actual gameplay? Let's get into that. Alright, so here is an example of what one of the continents could look like, and it's obviously much more in the like isometric art style of PoE 2. I think the terrain generation system and this kind of like the art of the Atlas in PoE 2 is brilliant. I just think it needs to not be infinite, and they need to like, scale it down to a manageable size. There is 12 regions on this Atlas here, and so you would take your boat down into this bottom region here. I'll show you there, and then you arrive in basically what is the first zone. Now, all of these regions, all of these zones, they also have nodes and towers, and those towers and nodes are obviously linked together. And this is now looking like, as you know, familiar with in the PoE 2 endgame. So we zoom in a little bit here. So the idea is that at the start of every region, you have a tower. And the tower basically allows you to put in a tablet, and it allows you to select a league mechanic. So if I bring up the UI here, what I'm going to do is I'll show you, here is the, the original UI, the current UI that it is. You have the tablet slots, which grow in number based on the map mods you have. And then you can put your waystone in. You've got these like empty slots, which don't really do anything at the minute. I've redesigned this just, for the purposes of this. And the idea is that every time you go to a tower, you would select an Atlas tree, so one of the sub-trees like Breach, Delirium, Expedition, etc., that you want to be active in the zone. And as you unlock more, you'll be able to select more of these, but just for now, you select one of those. So let's say you selected Breach, and then every single node in that region is then affected by your Breach tree and guarantees Breach in it. So you don't have to, this like simplifies the whole like extra mechanic thing, makes it really clear. And then on top of that, you have a tablet slot, and the idea being that you just have one tablet slot, and that as you progress through the game, you get like a tablet effectiveness. So just like in PoE 1, where you get like quant for increasing your Atlas completion, you would get like, up to like 10, 20, maybe 30% increased tablet mod effect. And that would essentially just add this like nice granular improvement of your tablet effectiveness. Maybe that goes up to 100%, who knows. And then mechanically, what you would do is you would go around each of the nodes. There's 12 nodes in each region, and if you say a map takes from like 3 to 5 minutes, then you are like roughly doing this like in like an hour. Let's say on average, you're completing a region in an hour. And once you've completed enough of the nodes within a region, there will be like one node which transforms into a region boss node. And this would contain, like one of the like harder, more kind of like pinnacle-y style bosses, like the Jade Isle boss or something like that. And then once you complete that region, you kill that region boss, the tower then like illuminates, as you see here. And the idea is that you then unlock access to adjacent nodes, and you can transport to any one of those towers. So you would select which region you then wanted to go to next, and you would repeat the process, and you're completing the region. Once you've completed that region, it's seen as like conquered. As you went about, the 12 different regions on each of these continents, you would eventually pick up 3 keys. And the 3 keys would allow you to access a burning monolith or a monolith. I thought it'd be really cool if each of the continents had a different arbiter. So there was like arbiter of ash on one of them, arbiter of frost, and arbiter of, the skies or whatever. And each of them would offer like a different monolith that you had to complete. All that stuff's like details. You go from region to region. It takes you roughly an hour to complete a region, so that within any game session, you're like, okay, maybe I can try and get 1 region done today, or maybe I'll get 10 regions done today if you're really blasting. We'll get into replayability in a minute. Once you complete a continent, you permanently settle the first region of that continent, and this then allows you some further meta progression, because it allows you to essentially advance your settlement from Oriath onto these continents and get a foothold. And that allows you to then build a new meta sort of mechanic within the game. So that could be something that I was thinking, like any of the out of map stuff. So say Delve, where you have like a mine encampment, or Colosseum, which is this idea for a league I've got that is like a kind of gauntlet boss run, like an arena style tournament system. Or you could have like a Scourge Gate that lets you like jump into the Beyond. Who knows? That's for GGG to come up with fun, interesting stuff. But this idea that you basically build something on that settled ground, you as the player get to choose what you build, and then you get access to these like new mechanics that you're kind of unlocking as you go. The broad idea is that you would complete all 3 of your continents, and then you would unlock, if we look back at this tower UI, you would unlock each of the Atlas tree slots. So by the end of it, you've unlocked 3 Atlas tree slots. So every single region that you go into, you can activate, say, like Breach, Expedition, and, Delirium or something. Now, that might seem like quite a lot, considering we only have like 4 mechanics right now, I think. But, you know, as the game expands, we might have up to like, you know, 10 mechanics within, you know, a couple of years. And so picking those 3, I think, will still feel quite, it won't feel like you've got everything. All right, the last thing I want to talk about is replayability. So it's obviously super important that you can replay the maps and nodes over and over again. And so the idea is that in the back end, there is a system where as you're going around completing different regions, other regions will become contested again. Now that could be that they're rerun over by corruption or a rival faction like the Faradon or the, you know, the Ezamites or rogue groups of Val have like taken this over. Depending on how the area is contested, you could have very different effects on the region. Let's say, for example, like, you know, Breach or the current league mechanic could then take this role where, you know, say it's a bestiary league, wild beasts have taken over the area. And every time that a zone is contested, you have to then re-go into that, start it again. It gives a new opportunity to put a new tablet in, to select your atlases again, influence all the nodes. It has a chance to spawn, you know, your unique nodes and stuff like that. Just like you would in an infinite atlas, but it's just keeping it subdued. And I guess like this comes to the core of why I think this is a better system. And it's a lot of it is based in psychology, I think. This is where I'm really curious if you agree with me. There's something about having an infinite atlas that obviously makes everything feel a bit pointless. Like there's no end goal, there's no digestibility of progress. And this feeling of being able to complete complete zones, not only is that mechanically like, oh, I've completed this, I can see I've done it. But it's also this like story sense of like you are in a new world, you are rebuilding civilization, and you're going out there as a player to try and achieve something that has like a narrative meaning, as well as like a mechanical benefit and a meta progression that is a lot clearer. And I think, yeah, just breaking the world down into these chunks that can be completed, it just makes it all feel a little bit more coherent. And of course, as the game develops, GGG can then add new mechanics, new opportunities. They could even expand the continents. They could add more continents. One of the ideas that I thought would be interesting is if they added like an island hopping, like sea exploration kind of system, maybe, you know, further to the west or something on the world map. The world is their oyster with this kind of thing, excuse the pun. So that's it. I haven't gone into too much depth with this like my other sort of league rework things, like the Incursion League rework, which I would actually recommend maybe watching. I will link it here, I'll put it up, because I did a full like reimagining of Incursion League in PoE 2, and obviously we've got the Fate of the Val League teaser. So that's what we're going to get revealed today. I wonder if there's anything in there that makes sense and makes a comeback, like the temple building and that kind of stuff. But yeah, let me know what you think about this. I think that it is a really good solution to, I think, the aimlessness that people feel in PoE 2's endgame currently. We're going to find out very shortly what they actually did with this, whether they went really big like something like this where it's completely reimagined, or if they just kind of played around with some of the nodes and did something smaller but maybe even more effective. You know, maybe it doesn't need a whole rework. You tell me what you think. I'm always curious to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure there's a load of flaws in this potentially as well. I will be in the comments to answer questions, but for this one, it's nice to be back. That's the last thing I'll say. I don't know how often I'm going to be putting out videos like a madman, probably not like before, but I'd like to try and get back. I've been missing this a lot. I've been missing the conversations with you guys. I've been loving PoE 2, but I've also very much accepted that it may take, you know, many months and years for the game to develop and to fully like come to fruition, and I'm really excited to go on that journey. And so yeah, I will be around. I have a ton of Ascendancy ideas still in the bank that are all just there and done, so maybe I'll share some of those soon. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Friends, exiles, thank you so much for watching. As always, see you in the next one. Ta-da.